Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf nun chet. We are beginning a new chapter in Masechet Zevachim, but although technically a new chapter, and of course significantly, we return to having machlokot in our mishnayot. That we are not everything isn't a stam mishnah. We are going to now have we're going to really be talking about the same topic, namely where we do the different aspects of the sacrifices. And so, as we begin at the very top of Nun Chet Amud Aleph, the Mishnah says, "Kodshe Kodshim shishchatan berosh hamizbeach," that when it comes to the holiest of sacrifices, again, we had a whole list in the last parak of what those were. They include the communal shlamim. They include an ola. They include a chatas and an asham. They include the various sacrifices on holidays. All of those, except for the Pesach offering, all of those sacrifices, if you slaughtered the animal on the top of the Mizbeach, so Rabbi Yossi says, Ki'ilu nishchatu b'tzafon. It's as if you sacrificed it in the northern side of the courtyard, and therefore it would be kosher. And so Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and here it's a little confusing because there are two Rabbi Yossis. One's just Rabbi Yossi, and one is Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says so that this is and the first, and Rabbi Yossi, by the way, is Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chalafta. That's the just plain Rabbi Yossi. So now, but this is Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. He says, "Machatzia mizbech ledarom kedarom, machatzia mizbech letzafon katzafon." Well, the question is are you on the northern half of the Mizbeach or the southern half of the Mizbeach? Now, the simplest read of this Mishnah may be that they're arguing about exactly where the Mizbeach is located, but that's not necessarily the read. And so I just want to note that fact that according to Rabbi Yossi, the first opinion in our Mishnah, it seems as if the entire Mizbeach is in the northern side of the courtyard, whereas Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, would seem to be saying that it's smack in the middle of the courtyard. Now, in any event, that's where we're going to begin with our Gemara. And we have Amar of Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Omer Haya, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, again, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, the first opinion in our Mishnah, Kule Mizbeach, but Safon Kai, and that the entire Mizbeach was in the north. So, Umay Ke'ilu. So, take a look at Rashi, Mai Ke'ilu, third line down on Unchet Amud Aleph. Havadai b'tzafon nishchat. One second. What do you mean that it's as if it was in the north? It was in the north. Why are you telling me that it is as if it was in the north? So ma'udatema b'in al yerech v'leika. And the reason that it says as if is because I might have thought that the Torah says that v'shachat as oso al yerech hamizbeach, that you slaughter the animal at the side of the altar. This is Vayikra Perak Aleph Pasuk Yud Aleph. And so here you didn't do it at the side, you did it on top of the Mizbeach. And so as a result, maybe it wouldn't be good. So we say, no, it's as if you did it in the northern half of the courtyard. It's as if you did it on the ground. It is all fine and dandy. Kamash Malan, it's considered as if you did it on the northern side, and it's going to be kosher. So Amar le Rabbi Zera le Rav Asi. So now we're going to, on some level, assume that the reason that Rav Asi, or the reason that Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav Asi quotes it, the reason that Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Yossi would say that the entire altar was in the north is based on this Mishnah. But we're going to see that that's not necessarily a good proof. So Amar le Rabbi Zera le Rav Asi. Rabbi Zera says to Rav Asi, Helamiata. given the fact that you seem to be suggesting that Rabbi Yossi says that the altar was all in the north, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, when you're now giving me the view of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Hachinami de Chetzio b'tzapam v'chetzio b'darom, are you telling me that he also would therefore say that the Mizbeach is half in the north and half in the south? And let's take a look at Rashi as Rashi helps us understand this. Because Ela Me'ata, what's the idea? But now, if you're saying that the idea is the following: Kasalka Daitach. If you think so he was thinking. This is what Rabbi Zeru was thinking. Is the following: Kasalka Daitach the Rabbi Zera de Mimas Nisin Gamer that La Rabbi Yochanan that he thought. Rabbi Zeru thought that it was from our Mishnah that Rabbi Yochanan came to the conclusion that Rabbi Yossi said that in fact that he would generally say that the Mizbeach was in the north. So if you say that, well then Moda Rabbi Yossi but Rabbi Yehuda, would Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi so we haven't gotten to that language, so we'll go back into the Gemara. So v'chi tema hachinami, and so if you now say that, and this is the first word on the 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th line in the Gemara, the 10th line down from the top of the Chetam and Aleph, v'chi tema hachinami, and if you say, yeah, in fact, maybe it is that Rabbi Yossi says that it was in the middle. V'ha'at hu de amrat. Mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. You, Rav Asi, said also in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Mo de Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, She'im Shchatan Kenegdan Bekarka Pesula. That if in fact, and we're going to try to explain exactly what this means, but if you were to in fact imagine a world where there was no Mizbeach, and now you slaughter an animal on the location of the Mizbeach, it is going to be invalid. So that suggests that Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, would say that in fact the entire Mizbeach is in the southern part of the courtyard. So the
Well,
point
doesn't the Mishnah seem to suggest when it says Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda mechatzia mizbeach v'darom that the midline goes that there's a of the mizbeach separates half so that the mizbeach half of it is in the tzvon and half in the side, and the midline runs right down the
that's
middle.
That's exactly the point that the Gemara is saying. That I would have thought that Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, would say that it's in the midline, that it's exactly on the midline, and that the middle of the mizbeach is in the middle of the courtyard. But we also have a statement that Rabbi Yochanan said regarding Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and that statement was that if in fact someone were to slaughter a kodshe kodshim right in the wherever the altar was, it would be invalid. And so as a result, it can't be that it's partially in the north, is our Hava Amin at this moment. Let's take a look at Rashi, first of the narrow lines. Moda Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Aval Bi Shemachshir Lemizbeach Mechetzio Leftzafon. Even though he seems to allow the sacrificing of an animal from the midpoint to the north, Modehu, he admits She'im shchato keneged oto makom mitachtehem bakarka. That if instead of sacrificing the animal on the top of the mizbeach, you instead sacrificed on the animal on the land underneath the mizbeach, psulot, it would be puzzle. Ulakamei, and the Gemara is about to do mefaresh heich yachol lishchot tachas hamizbech. The Gemara is going to now address the question, or very shortly address the question: how is it possible? You know, the mizbech is standing there. How do you slaughter the animal on the ground? Meaning, is it just a theoretical question, or is it does it have potential application? Meaning, what was the situation where this would be in fact the case? So that's the
question. Sort of an imaginary exercise.
That's the question that we're going to see in a moment. So we're going to, when we get to Gufa, about midway down the page, that's what we're going to be analyzing. But the point is right now, we still seem to have two inconsistent statements. On the one hand, as you just suggested, the Mishnah itself suggests that according to Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, he would say that the Mizbeach is smack in the middle of the courtyard, and therefore the northern half of the Mizbeach is north and the southern half is south. But then the statement of Rabbi Yochanan that Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, would in fact say that wherever you were on the ground underneath the Mizbeach, you would end up being puzzle, suggests that it's all in the south. So how are we going to resolve this? So Amar Le, Rav Asi responds back to Rabbi Zera, Hakika Amar Rabbi Yochanan. No, here's what Rabbi Yochanan is saying. Shnehem mikra echad darshu. Really, our our machlokas in our Mishnah has nothing to do with the location of the Mizbeach. But v'zavakta Allah, but what they're arguing about is the meaning of the following verse. V'zavakta, this pasuk is Shmod Kaf pasuk Kaf Aleph. V'zavakta alav es olo sechav es shlamecha. The fact is that it says that you're going to slaughter on the altar, on this altar of earth that you're going to make for Hashem. You're going to slaughter it, both your Ola offerings and your Shlamim offerings. And so, irrespective of its location, Rabbi Yossi Savar, Kula la'ola v'kula l'shlamim, Rabbi Yossi says, what it means is that all of the altar is eligible for slaughtering the Ola or the shlamim. Doesn't make a difference where that mizbeach is located, whether it's in the north or the south. It's treated as if it's the north. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, no. Chetzio la'ola v'chetzio l'shlamim. Again, nothing to do with the location. It has to do with whether or not Rabbi Yossi says that half of it is for the Ola and half of it is for the Shlamim. Now, of course, when we say half of it is for the Shlamim, we really mean that the whole thing is for the Shlamim, but half of it is only for the Shlamim. And so as we've seen previously, we have a kal v'chomer that if you can make it, if you can sacrifice an Ola in the north, well, then certainly you can sacrifice a Shlamim in the north. Now, so
What
that
are you
is
suggesting? That I mean, I don't know if the Gemara goes this way, that the Mizbeach itself is Ma'akev. So that we were talking about whether
not
you
ma'akev.
sacrifice.
You don't mean, I don't think you mean ma'akev. Ma'akev would mean that you would have to do it on the
Correct.
Mizbeach.
That's what I'm saying. So that when
No,
we're
no,
talking
no, no,
about the
no, 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 no,
ground
no, no.
beneath it,
No, it's
that
clearly not, because clearly we also have, notwithstanding this pasuk that says, "And you shall slaughter it on the on your ola and offerings and your shlomim offerings," that which suggests that you slaughter literally on the mizbeach.
right.
Remember that we saw just a moment ago that the Torah also says, "V'shachat oso al yerech hamizbeach," that you slaughter it at the side of the mizbeach, and so that's clear that it's referring to the side on the ground of the mizbeach, and we've had previously whole discussions about the fact that you need to slaughter the kodesh kodshim on the northern side of the mizbeach, and we had a disagreement about the breadth of that northern side. Is it only north opposite the mizbeach, or is it north from side to side in the courtyard? And then we had the position that the openings of the various openings of the ulam and the heichal would add to the space where you can shecht a kodesh kodshim, according to some opinions. Bottom line is certainly it's not ma'akev. No,
No, what I want to say is that there has to be a Mizbeach there. So even if we can sacrifice on the side or the north a little bit, but there is a Mizbeach. But what I'm saying is here, when they're talking about underneath the Mizbeach, we're imagining there's no Mizbeach. If there's no Mizbeach anywhere in the building, then
yeah.
maybe that could be Ma'akev. That's what I'm
As
going to
I
say.
said, we are going to explain what that means in just a few moments. That isn't what it's going to, how the Gemara is going to explain it. Could the Gemara have explained it that way? I don't want to say that it's impossible, but that's not how the Gemara is
All
going
right.
to explain
Okay.
it. So the isal kadaita. So again, the Gemara is now continuing. So we're now one, two, the beginning. It's the first words on the sixth 9, 12, 15, 17th line down in the Gemara on Nunchet Amud Aleph. So to Isal Kadaitach Kulo Laola Kasher. Because now, Hashta Kulo Kasher, Kulo Lishlam Mibai. Now, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that it's 50-50, half of it is for the Ola and half of it is for the Shlamim, would say to Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, the first opinion, who says that the whole thing can be done. Well, if you can shech the whole thing, we have our Kal V'chomer, right? Our Kal V'chomer is that if you can shech an Ola in a place, well, then certainly you can shech the Shlamim in a place. So if in fact the whole top of the Mizbeach is kosher for an Ola, why do you need to tell me in the Torah? Why did the Torah need to say V'zavakta alav es olosecha ve'es shlomecha? Just say V'zavakta alav es olosecha, and of course I would know shlomecha. So that's why Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda interprets it as chetzi la'ola, chetzi l'shlamim. The idach and Rabbi Yossi, how does he deal with that? Itzrich. He says, no, you do need to tell me about the shlamim. That I would have thought that because the location in which one can slaughter an ola is relatively narrow, so that's why we specifically allow you to do it on top of the altar. Aval shlamim. There's plenty of space because you could shech the ola shlamim, anywhere in the courtyard. So Amalo, maybe I would not allow the slaughtering of it on the altar. So Kamash Malan, that's why the Torah needs to mention both, and therefore Rabbi Yossi, the first opinion, says that in fact it's all kosher for the Ola, it's all kosher for the Shlamim. So Gufa. Now we get to the question that's been bothering Ken and all of us, which is, what in the world does that mean? So Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mode Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, She'im Shchatan Kenegdan Bakarka Psulot. We have this statement that Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that in fact Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, would admit that if you slaughtered the sacrifice, namely Kodshe Kodshim, on the ground where the altar was, it would be disqualified. So Amrle Rav Acha Medifta Ravina. So my Kinegdan Bakarka. What in the world does this mean? So Ilema Ama Yesod Ama Yesovev. If you want to say, well, it means that you're doing it on the Ama, on the one Ama of the base that we know is on the northern side, or the one Amma ledge that goes essentially all around the Mizbeach. Hi, Gufei Mizbeachu. That's not on the ground, so you can't tell me that that's what we're talking about. V'od, my Kenegdan Bakarka. So, and moreover, what is the concept of Kenegdan, opposite it? What in the world does that mean? So, V'chi Tema, D'Avid Mechilos Bakarka V'Shachibahu. If you're going to say, oh, well, it means that they dug underneath the altar and they slaughtered the sacrifice in that cave that one created underneath the altar. V'chihai Gavna Mihava Mizbeach. Are they allowed to do that? Vatanya Mizbeach Adamata Seli. You have to make an earthen altar for me, Shiyehe mechubar ma'adama, which we learn in a brisa, which we're quoting right now, means that it needs to be attached to the earth. Shelo yivinenu lo al gabi mechilos v'lo al gabi kipin. You're not allowed to build it on top of cavities or arches. So it can't be. Now, you might be saying, hey, I thought all of the Harabayas was arches. No, in fact, what this is saying is that it's not all arches. Some of the ground, right? It's a hill that the Beis Hamikdash was built on, and although much of the Har Habayis is built up and not on the hill itself, the location of the Mizbeach is specifically on the hill itself. So So what is the possible answer? So the Gemara explains, Lo tzricha de batzrei betzurei. No, that's not what we're talking about. So it's not talking about next to or under, because those can't be. Whether we're dealing with a situation where they chose to shrink the altar size. So let's take a look at Rashi. 1, 2, 3, 5 lines up from the bottom of the narrow lines. De batzrei betzurei. Im nimlach liktsar et hamizbeach. If they decide to shrink the mizbeach, v'nishar machzeh shel tzafon panoi. And now some of the northern part of the mizbeach is now available, and it's now not. It just has ground on it. V'shachat sham, and you slaughtered it there. Psulot, it would be puzzle. V'avagat de Yerechu, even though it is by the side of the Mizbeach, Psile, it is puzzle. So Alma doesn't, this shows Svirale that when it comes to Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, that he Svirale bidarom azarahu. He must think that the Mizbeach was in the southern half. De'ilo, because if he didn't, amai psile. Why would it be puzzle? If in fact the Mizbeach was halfway in the north, then it should be possible to have eliminated some of the Mizbeach, still be in the north, and it be something that would be kosher. So the fact that he says that it's not kosher shows that the entire structure of the Mizbeach was in the southern half, according to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. So that is our proof. And so, in fact, we are left at the moment with an absence of support for how we know that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chalafta, that Rabbi Yossi the son of Rabbi Chalafta, the Tanakama of our Mishnah, that how we know that he says that the entire altar is in the north, and so that's where we head to next.
Well, how can that be? How can he hold this position of Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yehuda? If that's the case, there would never be a kosher sacrifice because the altar would be in the south. Even the altar would be in the south, right?
Why say more? Just because the altar's in the south, the altar would be on the at the midline, so that it's so if we imagine this is the midline between, and this is all north and this is all south, the altar would be right here where its top edge is at the borderline of the north-south. So everything to the north of the altar is north, and so as a result, the entire ground that is from the altar to the walls of the courtyard is a legitimate place to slaughter the animal, and then here is the mizbeach, and so as a result, after you slaughter the animal up here, you bring it down and around, and you go up the ramp, which is coming from the south, and then you put the emurim on top of the altar.
But according to Rashi, isn't he saying that Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda's position is that the entire altar was in the south?
Correct. The entire altar was in the south, but that's not inconsistent with anything. There's no we don't, nowhere in the Torah does it say exactly where the altar is.
But where is he? But he's saying that he would shech the animal in a makom tzafon panui, where there's no altar, and that would be pasul. So if
no. What he's saying is that he would shecht it in the northern place of where the altar was, and it would be pasul. And that's because the Kodshe Kodshim need to be slaughtered in the south. So if you were to take, again, if this is the borderline between north and south, and you take a little bit of the altar away, so now you have the altar going here. So there's some space that's still part of the southern half of the courtyard, but it's north of the altar. That would now be a puzzle location to sacrifice to slaughter a sacrifice, because it's not in the north. You have to sacrifice. You have to slaughter sacrifices that are kodshe kodshim in the north, and so that is what it's saying, and that's the proof that the whole altar was in the south. Because if, in fact, any of the altar would be in the north, and you removed that portion of the altar, now if you sacrificed on the ground where you remove the altar, it would be in the northern half of the courtyard, and it should certainly be a kosher location. So how could he say that it's puzzle? So the only way that we can understand this statement by Rabbi Yochanan about Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda is that it must be that the entire altar was in the south, because that's why no matter where you remove the altar, no matter where you remove the altar, you're going to be removing it from southern land in the southern half of the courtyard, and that's why you can't actually shecht the animal in that location. Even though you're allowed to shecht it on the northern half of the top of the Mizbeach, that's because we have a Xeris Akasav. The Pasuk says, Zavachta alav es olosecha ve'eshlomecha. And Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says that means that the Ola can be slaughtered on the northern half of the altar. So even though it could be slaughtered on the top of the altar, if you remove the altar, it would no longer be kosher.
Oh, so
And
he holds that you shecht it in the southern part of the altar.
no,
In
no,
general.
you have to shecht it on the northern half, even though it's an ola. The ola needs to be shechted in the northern part of the courtyard. Even though the ola needs to be shechted on the northern part of the courtyard, and even though the altar is in the southern half of the courtyard, if you shecht it on the northern half of the altar, it's still going to be okay, because we have a pasuk that specifically says alav es that you're allowed to slaughter on top of the altar an ola. And according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, he says that that refers to the top half, the northern half of that of the altar is okay for slaughtering an ola.
So, but it has to be on the altar. If it was no altar there, you couldn't shecht it, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. That he says that according to Rabbi Asi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, says that when it comes to Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, he admits that even though the altar is on the northern is in the southern half, and therefore you really shouldn't be able to sacrifice it. He says that it's kosher to sacrifice it on the top of the northern half of the altar. If you were to remove the altar and sacrifice it on the ground opposite where that altar was, it would not be kosher. And the reason that it would not be kosher is because it's in the southern half of the courtyard. And the southern half of the courtyard is not a kosher location for slaughtering kodshe kodshim.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so now again, so we now have a good understanding of Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. He has the position that again, the top face of the altar, half of it is good for the ola, half of it is good for the shlomim, and of course the all of it is really good for the shlomim. And he says that that is true, even though the entire altar is in the southern half. And that is why he says that if you were to remove any of the altar and slaughter a kodshe kodshim in the location that was removed from the altar, it would be a puzzle slaughtering. It would not be kosher. And so that is, his position is fully consistent. But we know exactly what he thinks about the location of the altar. But what about now Rabbi Yossi? Rabbi Yossi bar Chalafta, the first position in our Mishnah. What about his position? So Amar Rabbi Zera, Efshar Isa lahad Rabbi Yochanan v'lo tanina labim masnisin. We heard Rabbi Yochanan say about Rabbi Yossi, the first position in our Mishnah, that in fact he holds that the entire Mizbeach is in the north. So is there any way that could be true and it not have be a point that could be derived from a Mishnah? So nafak dak va'ashka. So he went out, he investigated, and he figured out exactly what the source is to show that in fact Rabbi Yossi Bar Chalafta, he holds that in fact it's going to be the entire altar is in the northern half because of the following statement. Beiruru misham atze te'ena yafim. So this is a Mishnah in Maseches Tamid. It's on Daf Kaf Tet Amud Aleph, and it's describing the multiple pyres that would, or the second of the three pyres that were on the Mizbeach. The three pyres, one was, again, these pyres were where things were burned. One pyre was for the burning of the limbs of the Ola offerings and the Amurim of other offerings. The one was the one that we're going to describe, and that's going to be how you made coals to get the coals that you would then use to burn Ketoris on the inner golden altar. And then the third pyre was for so that there would always be a fire burning on the Mizbeach. So those were the three pyres that are on the top of the Mizbeach. We're now going to be describing the second of them. So what would they do? Beiruru Misham, they would choose from there, namely, Rashi tells us, Misham Midir Ha'etzim, third line down in the medium lines of Rashi, from the storehouse of the wood. So they would choose from there, Atze Te'enem Yafim. They would choose nice pieces of fig wood, fig tree wood. So, L'sader Ma'arachash Niyashal Ketoris. And they would use that to set up the second pyre in order to then develop the coals that would be used to burn the Ketoris. Keneged Keren Ma'aravis Deromis. And it would be near the southwestern corner of the altar. And that's the corner that is closest to the opening of the Heichal, especially if you hold that the Mizbeach was fully in the north, as we are going to say. And that's going to be relevant to how this Mishnah shows that Rabbi Yossi actually says that the entire Mizbeach is in the north. Mashach min hakeren klapet safon arba amos. And you would go away from the corner 4 amos. Now, right now, you might have thought that that keren means the horn. Here, we're meaning keren, meaning the corner. So it's the southwesternmost corner where there is a yesod. We're going to go 4 amos away. Ba'omer chamesh sein gechalim. They would estimate an amount that ba'omed chamesh sein gechalim. They would estimate that there would be so that there would be 5 saw of coals, that which would be 30 kav. Now they don't need 30 kav in order to burn to move coals to the inner altar, but they would have more than enough. Uve Shabbat ba'omed shmonis in gechalin, and on Shabbos they would try to have enough for 8 saws of coal. Sham hayu nosnin shnei beziche levona shalechem upon him, because that was there on that second pyre that they would put 2 spoons of the levona of the lechem upon him that were placed and burned every Shabbos. And so as a result, they needed a little bit of extra fire to make sure that they had enough fuel to burn that. Umay simana, what's the story there? What meaning? How does this actually show that we're talking about what the situation is? Rabbi Yossi. This is Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya, because we have a brisa that says, as we turn to Nuchet Amud Bet, Rabbi Yossi Omer Zeh Siman Kol Hanital Bifnim L'Nasein B'Chutz Eino Nosein Ela B'Samach She'ein Lifnim. That whenever you're taking something from the inside of the sanctuary, namely the Kodesh, and you're taking it to put on the outside, namely on the outer altar, you always put it on the place that is closest to the inside. And whenever you take from the outside to bring to the inside, you always take it from the closest location that is possible from the outside. So the idea is that you should always have the least amount of traveling with anything that is moving from inside to outside or outside to inside. So, what are you referring to when you say that you need to go from the inside to the outside. Elema, Shirayim, if you want to say that you're talking about the leftover blood that we've been talking about for much of our Masechet, that from the inner offerings that were, where the blood was sprinkled on the inner Mizbeach, and potentially on the Paroches, and even potentially in the Kodesh HaKodeshim, if we're talking about on Yom Kippur, Behed Yiksiv Behu. That we all learned was explicitly learned in the Torah because El Yesod Mizbach Haolah Asher Pesach Oel Moed. We specifically say that you need to pour the blood onto the base of the Ola altar, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting, meaning that it needs to be in the closest location, as we have seen previously in our learning together. Visu, and moreover. So, all right, so we don't have a good answer as to what we're referring to when we say that you take something from inside to outside. And moreover, kolanita b'chutz l'nisan b'fnim, when we talk about something that you take from outside and you bring inside, ma'nihu, what are you talking about? If you're going to tell me, well, when the Kohen Gadol goes inside lifnev lifnim into the Kodesh HaKodeshim, he is going to be burning incense on a fire pan, and the coals that will burn that incense on that fire pan are going to come from the outer altar. Well, we know we know that those already have to come from the closest location of the outer altar. And it says that he's going to take a shovel full of the fiery coals. And where is he going to do that? The pasuk continues, May al hamizbeach milifnei Hashem, that he's going to be taking it from before Hashem. Before Hashem implies the closest location. So we don't know what we're talking about when Rabbi Yossi is supposedly saying that you pull things out from the inner altar to the outer altar, you should leave them in the closest location on the outer altar. And when you bring things from the outer altar to the inner altar, you should take things from the closest location on the outer altar. So what is he referring? So Ella kolanito bifnim lenasin b'chutz. When it says that he's taking something from inside to go outside, shnei baziche lavona shel lechem apanim. He's talking about the 2 spoons of the lavona of the lechem apanim, to gumrim yishirayim, which we learn from shirayim. So yes, we do need to do it, but we didn't know it. It's not explicit in the Torah, and so as a result, that's what we're referring to. And so again, we have not yet completed our proof, but we're trying to show that, again, Rabbi Yossi on the one hand says that you need to take, when you take things out of the Kodesh to the outer altar, to the courtyard, to the Azarah, and you're going to leave them on the Mizbeach in the closest location, and vice versa. And what about Hanita Bachutz, Linas and Bifnim, when you take things from the outside and you bring them inside? It's referring to the coals of every day that we use for the ketores. Because we learn where they come from the coals of Yom Kippur. And just as the coals of Yom Kippur come from the second pyre, so too these coals would come from the second pyre. And just as that second pyre is 4 amos from the southwestern corner, so too that's what we're talking about. And so that's where that's our story. So we now know what was taken from inside to outside, namely it's the 2 spoonfuls of lavona, and we know what was taken from outside to inside, it's the coals of the ketores. But now, how do we know that the 4 amma location is in fact a statement by Rabbi Yossi and is a proof that in fact the Mizbeach was in the north? Well, let's take a look. My kasavar. What does Rabbi Yossi say with respect to the location of the altar? If he says that the entire Mizbeach is in the south, well then, if the entire Mizbeach is in the south, well, the entire Mizbeach is 32 amos by 32 amos. So the entire Mizbeach is in the south. So let's put that means that its northernmost point would be the north-south demarcation line, the midline. Well, that midline, there is 5, the first, the opening of the Heichal is 10 amos wide. So the opening of the Heichal is going to be, if it's 10 amos wide, and this Mizbeach is stopping at the midpoint of that, the first 5 amos, the northern 5 amos of the Mizbeach are going to be opposite the opening. Well, that leaves 27 amos that are south of the opening of the Heichal. Well, if that's true, the person is going to need to carry the coals 27 amos north. That's not the shortest amount of space. You want to make sure that when he carries it, he's already on the right longitude line, right? You want to make sure that he's on the right north, east, west horizontal line so that he goes straight from the Mizbeach straight into the Heichal. And that's not going to be the case here. Moreover, Ve'inami kasavar kedushas Heichal ve'ulam chadahi. And even if you want to say that in fact the ulam, which is 20 has a 20 amma wide opening, so the first 10 amos are in the, so 10 amos of the altar are opposite. If the altar again is again up to the midpoint of the courtyard, then the first 10 amos of the altar when heading south are going to be opposite the opening. Well, that still leaves 22 amos esrim mutarti by Macy. That still leaves 22 amos from the southwest corner. And what did we say? We said you're only going to move the move it 4 amos away from the southwest corner. So that's much more. You'd still need to do a lot of carrying north-south, and we want to have 0 carrying north-south. And if you say, okay, well, maybe it'll be 1/3, excuse me, 1/2 of the altar in the north and 1/2 in the south. Well, that still means if we have half in the north, half in the south, well, that means if you're focusing on the opening of the Heichal, so then we have half in the north, that's 16 amos. So half in the south, so half opposite the half of the Heichal opening is 5 amos. So that still puts you 11 amos away from the corner. And even if you use the opening of the ulam, right? So v'chades sorei by lumesa, you'd still have to carry it 11 amos from the southwestern corner. Ve'elaka savar kedushas heichav ulam chada milsei, and if you say that the ulam and the sanctuary are one holiness, and so as a result you could be opposite the opening of the ulam rather than the opening of the heichal, shizba ilamesa, you'd still need 6 amos, and we said 4. So as a result, again, because the 6 amos are constructed as follows: you have 16 amos that is in the north, then 16 amos in the south. The first 10 of those amos are opposite the opening of the ulam. The next 6 are not. But we said you only move 4 up from the bottom, from the southwestern corner, not 6. So that doesn't work. So Ella, Allah, Mishum de
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little confusing here. This the Mizbeach is situated south to north or north to south. It doesn't matter, right? But isn't the opening to the Heichal and the opening to the Ulam, aren't they on a east-west direction?
No, the opening of the Heichal faces east.
Right. So when we're
Correct.
talking
So
about 16 this way, 7 and carrying it, don't we want to carry from the Mizbeach to the
yes,
Heichal? But
but there are
that would
two
be going from
directions.
east to west.
Right. So we know how far the Mizbeach is. The Mizbeach is 11, I think it's 11 amos from the opening of the Ulam. The point is, we know you're going to have to travel those 11 amos. The question is, do you also have to travel any amos north-south? We want the answer to be that you don't travel at all anything north-south, that you just go west. You go straight from the altar west into the Heichal or
Right.
into the Ulam.
So why are
That's
we
what we're
talking about the length of the altar, whether it's 16 and 32, 16, 16, 5, and so why is that different? Because
Well, because
we're
again,
going alter in the south to north or north
all
to
right, you know
south.
what? I'm gonna draw it on the board here. Okay. So we have here the opening to the Heichal. Okay, this is the opening. All right, we have here the Mizbeach. Well, we're going to put the Mizbeach in the middle here. All right, so the question is, if this, you want to be going from the Mizbeach directly in. And the problem is even if we put the Mizbeach on the midline, this point is 6 amos north. I'm sorry that this marker is not working. Let me see if this work. Is 6 amos north, right? This point, which allows you to go straight in, is 6 amos north from the corner. And we said that you're going to put the pyre 4 amos north of the corner. And so as a result, you don't just go straight in. If you did that, you would hit a wall. You need to go north and then go in. And so that's why Rabbi Yossi can't be saying that the Mizbeach is on the midline.
He has to walk north. Why? Why does he have to walk north?
Because if he just walks west, he hits the wall of the Kodesh HaKodesh of the Kodesh of the Heichal. In fact, he hits the wall of the Ulam. Because this is actually the Ulam. And then here is the Kodesh. I don't know if you can even see it with
No,
this.
the marker isn't working too well.
The marker, this marker is working. It's just a bad color for the screen. The point is that if the Mizbeach is in the middle and you just walked west, you're going to hit the wall unless you're 6 amos. You're going to hit the wall of the Ulam and not get into the Ulam unless you're 6 amos north of the southwestern corner.
So want us to walk north and then turn left and walk west.
Yes, exactly. The problem is that if you have to, right? I mean, even focusing on the fact that you can do a diagonal, right? Like you don't have to walk directly. Now it's not working. There we go. If you don't, even though you can walk diagonally, the point is a diagonal is longer than a straight line, than a side of a triangle. The point is we want to be able to walk directly west. Due west is going to be the shortest distance from the Mizbeach to the Kodesh. And if we walk due west and we hit a wall, that is going to show that we haven't been successful in creating the shortest distance from the Mizbeach to the Kodesh.
So one still has to walk a few amot or whatever it may be north in order
Exactly.
and then turn left or diagonal.
Correct. That's exactly right. So that's why it doesn't work. Okay, so el alav mishum de kasabar kule mizbeach b'tzafon kai. So as a result, the entire thing has to be in the north. And now that we say that the entire thing is in the north, so vahani arba amos, how do you make up those 4 amos? Well, amma yesod. The first amma is the yesod, and of course you can't put a fire on the yesod because you just can't. That's not part of the altar. That's not part of the top surface of the altar. Then we have the Amma Soved. Then we have the Amma that the person walks around. So you certainly can't put it on there because the person's walking there. The Amma Makom Kranos. Then, of course, we have the Amma of the horn, where the horn is located. And then the Amma Makom Raglei Kohanim. And then there has to be space for the Kohen to get access to the corner and access to the fire. So as a result, that's why it ends up being from 4 to 5 amos. That's where this fire is going to be. And so debei maski lekamei tfei to Lake of Pesach. And if you were to go any further north, it would no longer be opposite the entrance of the sanctuary. Because again, the first 5 amos, if in fact the entire Mizbeach is on the northern half of the courtyard, well, then only the first five southernmost amos are going to be opposite the opening of the Heichal. And so as a result, because you can't put the pyre any further south than 4 amos, we're going to put it 4 amos. And that way, it'll still be opposite the opening of the Heichal. It'll be it'll be opposite the northernmost amma of the opening, but it'll still be opposite the opening, and that satisfies us. Okay, so Amar of Ada bar Ahava Hamani Rebbe Yehudahi. 1 second though, maybe our Mishnah could be Rebbe Yehuda. The Tanya, the Mishnah that we said, in which that we quoted at the very beginning here of our evidence to try and show that this is in fact that in fact Rebbe Yossi says that the entire Mizbeach is in the northern half. We quoted a Mishnah that said that they choose the fine pieces of wood from the fig tree and they put the pyre by the southwestern corner 4 amos from the corner. So maybe in fact it's Rebbe Yehuda. The Tanya Rebbe Yehuda Omer Mizbeach Memutza va'omed be'emtza hazara. That really the altar was precisely in the middle. Ushloshim ushtayim amos hayulo, and it was 32 by 32. Eser amos keneged psacho shel heichal v'achadesrei amma mikan v'achadesrei amma mikan, and it was 10 in the middle, opposite the opening of the heichal, and 11 to the north and 11 to the south. Nimtza mizbeach mechuvan keneged heichal, and so as a result, the entire width of the altar was opposite the width of the sanctuary. That's what his view. But sof Rebbe Yehuda chad srei boy lemese. But 1 second, it can't be. He would need to bring it 11 amos north in order to be opposite. Again, if he 11 amos, not just 4 amos, he would need the pyre to be 11 amos north of the southwestern corner, not just 4.
Why? Why is that?
Because again, we assume that he too would hold that you want to go directly from the Mizbeach to the into the Kodesh, and so again, that would be an 11 amma difference, not a 4 amma difference. And again, this Mishnah that we're citing, this Mishnah from Maseches Tamid Daf Kaf Tet Amud Aleph, says that you put this second pyre 4 amos from the southwestern corner. So Rebbe Yehuda chad srei boy lemese the ika savar kedushas heichal v'ulam chada milzahi shisba lemese. You would still need to bring it 6, meaning the whole reason that we said that Rebbe Yossi couldn't take the position that it's in the middle, it's still going to be a problem to Rebbe Yehuda. So the Gemara answers, no, mi savrat hani arba amos bahadi ama yesod v'ama sovev. 1 second. Who tells you that when we say that it's 4 amos north of the Keren, that we're including the amma of the base and the amma of the ledge? Arba amos bar me amma yesod va'ama sovev. Maybe it's 4 amos excluding the base and the sovev, and therefore it's 4 amos from the southern edge of the Karen, of the horn. And if that's true, that's really 6 amos. The nukma karebi umamutza. I'm sorry. And so as a result, therefore, it would be actually 6 amos from the bottom. And so as a result, it would be directly opposite the opening of the ulam. So the Gemara though says, 1 second.
Directly opposite. So I mean, meaning that ulam would be 6 amos away. That what we're saying?
So instead of being 4 amos from the southwestern corner, the pyre would in fact be 6 amos from the southwestern corner, and therefore it would be opposite the opening of the ulam, and therefore maybe according to the viewpoint that the ulam and the heichal have one level of kedusha, it would be a legitimate location for this to be located.
Have we established how far the ulam, the heichal is from the mizbeach?
The opening
opening
of the ulam
But
is
the,
20 amos wide. And so as a result, 10 of those amos are in the northern half of the courtyard, 10 of them are in the southern half of the courtyard. And so if the Mizbeach is smack in the middle and it's 32 amos wide, well, then only 6 amos extend beyond the northern edge of the opening of the ulam, and only 6 amos extend beyond the southern edge of the opening of the ulam. And so if we put the pyre 6 amos away from the corner, which is 4 amos away from the keren, from the horn, well, then you have done exactly what you need to do in order to allow somebody to go due west from the Mizbeach into the ulam. And so as a result, Rav Ada bar Ahava has shown that our effort to try and prove that Rabbi Yossi puts the entire Mizbeach in the north from this Mishnah is not successful. And so as a result, that can be a different situation. Now, Vinokmo Karebi Yossi, well, why did he choose to specifically say that it's Rebbe Yehuda who puts the mizbeh, that Mishnah would be like Rebbe Yehuda as opposed to being like Rebbe Yossi? That's who we're talking about. We're talking about Rebbe Yossi. So why didn't you say that it's Rebbe Yossi and he holds that it's in the middle? No, Mishuk the Rebbe Yehuda shamanale mimutzah behedja. We know explicitly that Rebbe Yehuda says that the Mizbeach is in the middle of the courtyard, and that half of it is in the north and half is it in the south. And so, as a result, that's why Rav Adar bar Ahava specifically references Rebbe Yehuda as opposed to Rebbe Yossi. But the bottom line is we now have two ways to understand the Mishnah in Tamid. One way to understand the Mishnah in Tamid is that the entire Mizbeach is to the north, and that what we mean by 4 amos from the southwestern corner is it includes the Yesod and the Sovev, and therefore it's essentially 1 amma away from the keren, from the horn. And the second way to understand it is no, it doesn't include the Yesod. When we say that it's 4 amas from the southwestern corner, 4 amas north of the southwestern corner, we're not including the ledge, we're not including the base, and therefore it's 4 amos north, and that means that it's a total of 6 amos from the corner, and therefore it can be, even if the Mizbeach is in fact in the middle, it can be opposite the opening of the ulam. So those are two different ways that we can now understand the Mishnah in Maseches Tamid. But those are not the only ways. We are going to have a third way, but for that third way, you're going to need to wait for tomorrow's daf.
So where is the this is getting a little bit confusing. All these measurements.
Yeah, it's very hard to follow if you don't have some diagrams. That's why I tried to draw it on the
I
board.
know.
I'm sorry that. Let me see if I can move my computer a little closer so that you can see. So again, right? Let's see. So again, here's the altar. If it was in the middle, right? This is the midline, and this is the ulam opening. It's 20. This is the Kodesh opening. It's 10.
20,
Okay.
that's 20.
The ulam opening is 20. Well, 20 opening means that there's 10 up here and 10 down here. And that means that this is 6 and this is 6.
So you got 10. You mean the olam is the opening of the olam is 20?
The opening of the ulam is 20. This distance is 20.
Okay.
All right. So as a result, we were saying before, if you're 4 amma from the corner, well, then you walk into the wall of the ulam. You don't walk into the ulam itself.
Well, how much space is there between the opening of the ulam to the mizbeach?
This distance, I think, is 11 amos, but I'm not 100% sure.
So that would be 4 minus.
But that's less. That's not relevant to our discussion because we always know you need to go this distance. The question is, do you need to go any distance this way or this way? That's the question that we have. And we want to have this distance equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, if this distance is not equal to 0, well, then we haven't made this traveling the shortest way possible.
Okay. So if you move the altar, if the altar is situated right smack in the middle, midline, you walk, it's the
So
shortest
what
distance.
Rav Ada Bar Ahava says is, well, we could have the Mizbeach situated in the midline, and when we say 4 amos, we're not including the Yesod, and we're not including the Sovev, and so as a result, it's actually 6 amos from this corner, and therefore you get to walk straight in. And
Um,
the original understanding is no, the Mizbeach has to be in the north. And what we said is we have 1 amma for the Sovev, for the Yesod, 1 amma for the Sovev, 1 amma for the Keren, 1 amma for the Kohanim to walk, and that 5th amma is right opposite this opening, right opposite this opening, and you go straight in. It's not a straight line because I didn't draw it right, but you go straight in, and so that's how we would have. That's how Rabbi Yossi could say. Rabbi Yossi could
so that's
say
the it's at
that
the
it's
so that
all in
the
the
pyre is
north.
at the southwest corner then, right?
Correct, exactly. Well, the pyre is always in the southwest corner. The question is where is that southwest corner relative to the opening of the ulam and the heichal?
So that in that case, where if it's in totally in the north, it would be five. How many amot again? It would be five.
It would be the 5th amma north. It would be 4 to 5 amos north of the northwest corner, and that 4 to 5 amos is perfect because again, this opening is 10 amos, right? This opening is 10 amos, and so 5 of it you have if it's structured so that it's right on the north-south line, the first 5 amos, we have 5 amos that are north of the midline, and so the 5th amma gets you a path straight in. Path straight in.
So they were talking about the opening of the Keicha being 10. So you're at the fifth Amma. Right.
Exactly. You're just barely in, but
And
you get in without having to walk anything north-south. All
and the
right. We're gonna pick up from there, God willing, tomorrow.
and
Hopefully that
according to one quick question, according to Reb Yossi Barera, Ben Rebbe, what do you call him? Ben?
Rabbi Yehuda.
Yeah, the Rebbe Yehuda. If he would say that the Mizbeach
He
is in
says
the
that
south,
the entire Mizbeach is in the south.
so therefore, but the upper section, on the midline or that line is on the north. So
Yep.
that's enough to be for the Mizbeach to be considered. It's enough to say that we're shechting something in the north, as long as there's a northern line there, right?
Well, no. Well, again, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda says again. So let's draw this. Draw a new drawing here.
Because he
Okay.
still wants to say that you're shechting in
So
the north,
here's the
right?
here's the midline again, and now the mizbeach is south of the midline. Okay, here, right? Let's make sure that you can see it. Can
We're
you
not
see?
saying that.
Can you see it?
Uh,
All right. So
okay.
here, I got to back up a little bit. All right. So here's the midline. The mizbeach is right here. Okay. Now, if even though here's now the midline of the mizbeach, he says that if you shecht an ola over here, it's kosher. Even though it's in the southern half of the courtyard, he has a xeris akasuv that says that in fact it's totally fine because it says that you can shecht an ola on top of the mizbeach, and it's referring to the top half of the mizbeach.
Oh, it doesn't matter if it's in the south.
Correct. It doesn't matter. That's exactly right. And that's why he would say that if
Oh,
you were to cut away some of the Mizbeach, so let's say instead now the Mizbeach is like this, and now you do a sacrifice right here on the ground, this would not be kosher because it's in the southern half.
as long as you shecht on top of the Mizbeach,
You have
it's
the shecht
kosher.
in the northern half of the Mizbeach, then it would be okay. But if
Even
you
though the
shecht,
Mizbeach itself is in the south, as long
even
as
though the Mizbeach is in the south, that's exactly right. Even
so
though the
to,
Mizbeach is in the south.
he's referring to the north of the Mizbeach, not the north of the
Of the Azara, not the north
Hazara.
of the Azara.
Well, that's kind of an interesting position.
Yes, it's a very again. It's because of Xeris Akasov that the Torah says specifically that you can shecht on top of the mizbeach.
Uh-huh.
All right. Have a great day. Tomorrow we're going to have to finish on time because they have a class in here afterwards. But looking forward to continuing our learning tomorrow.